In a cave settlement, a group of people gathers as a warrior encourages a priestess and a little girl to cooperate, pushing the girl's father to take action about their behavior. Meanwhile, a young man sits at his computer, advising them to try their hardest, as he typically does. This tale explains how he transformed into a god of fate, rescued some villagers, and was rescued by them in return. 1 month prior, the unshaven young man was eating at his parents' house while his mother questioned if he'd secured employment yet. She remarks that his father won't be able to work indefinitely, and although they're coping for now, she's concerned about his future plans if they pass away. While eating, he lowers his spoon, slams the table in frustration, and snaps at his mother that he's aware of his situation, rudely telling her to be quiet. She scolds him for his inactivity, but he silently wishes she'd hold off on the lecture until after his meal, regretting his early wake-up. Abruptly, he stands, declares he's lost his appetite, and stomps off, leaving his food untouched. He knows his behavior is terrible. After high school, he attended and completed a standard college that accepted almost anyone, but his troubles started afterward. Though his college years weren't terrible, the real issue emerged later. Even before finishing school, he put effort into finding a job, yet every company he applied to turned him down. Over time, his drive faded as rejections piled up while his peers moved forward in life. Years slipped by, and a full decade passed since he graduated. His mother pointed out how their acquaintances had advanced while he stayed a NEET, now over 30, though he was already conscious of his stagnation compared to his classmates' steady jobs and families. His thoughts halt midway up the stairs when the doorbell chimes. Through the intercom, he spots a delivery man with a package bearing an odd logo and chooses to open the door himself. His mother frets that he spent money he doesn't have, but he insists it could be a prize he won. To escape his guilt over unemployment, he's been entering every online raffle he finds. Sometimes he wins items, including adult products, which he grabs quickly so his parents won't notice. Outside, he signs for the package, catching the courier's surprised expression, likely from seeing a man home midweek, and notes his neighbor's increasingly obvious stares, which he's grown used to. His mother makes a sharp remark as he takes the package. Alone in his room, he opens the box to reveal a blank video game CD labeled The Village of Fate. He suspects it's an alpha test, and a note confirms he's been selected to try a groundbreaking game with lifelike characters, the first of its kind. As the god of fate, he'll guide villagers daily to build their community, learning more rules as he goes. Yoshio finds this setup careless and assumes it's a village-building game. The note forbids sharing game details with others or posting online, threatening to revoke his access and reclaim the game that he disobeys. He's shocked the company didn't require a contract and wonders how they detect online leaks. The note instructs him to play while always connected to the internet, cautioning that he can't play again if his village is destroyed. Since it autosaves, reverting to an earlier point isn't an option. Yoshio finds these rules tough and questions their feasibility. Unsure whether to install it, he searches online but finds no trace of the game. Worried about viruses, he opts to test it on his old computer, suspecting it might be a low-quality game or a hoax, given how much time he spends gaming and browsing online. Yoshio reluctantly agrees to try the game, intending to share his thoughts online if it turns out to be a trick. The game begins with a basic title screen that he finds unimpressive, but when he presses enter, his eyes widen in awe. He watches a cart racing through a forest with stunning graphics he's never seen before. A rugged, scared warrior steers the cart, frantically attempting to escape two monsters chasing him on boars. Yoshio notices this medieval fantasy scene unfold, with the game revealing a frightened family inside the cart. The family cowers in terror as a priestess grips her Bible, praying to the god of fate for safety. One monster slashes at the cart's side, making them scream as the attack persists. Another monster races ahead, and Yoshio sees they're targeting the horses. The warrior spots this, pulls out his sword, and blocks the creature's strike, but the second monster seizes the moment to lunge at the horses. Before it can hit, the priestess's Bible glows brilliantly, dazzling the monsters and forcing them back. The warrior then checks on the passengers, who all smile, relieved to be out of danger. Seeing this, Yoshio figures the game has officially started and wonders what to do next. When he clicks on the warrior, a character profile appears, introducing a 26-year-old warrior monk named Gams, the older brother of Kim, a 19-year-old priestess of the god of fate. Yoshio notes she doesn't resemble her brother at all and marvels at the game's origins, admiring its incredible graphics. He decides to explore later and examines the other characters' profiles instead. The remaining three are family. Russ, a 33-year-old ex-general store owner, his tough 30-year-old wife Lee, and their surprisingly grown-up 7-year-old daughter Carol. Together with the siblings, they form the game's core cast. Though Yoshio enjoys watching, he's still unclear on how to play. Just then, a chime alerts him that the characters are speaking through text dialogue. Gams kneels, expressing regret for not protecting their village, barely saving them in time. Russ tells him to get up, saying it's a miracle they escaped the monster swarm. Carol asks about the bright flash, calling the warrior her big brother. Kem responds sharply, reminding her Gams is her actual brother. Yoshio observes Kem's brother obsession and pegs the siblings as the main focus. Gams scolds his sister for acting immature. Carol jumps in, teasing them both, and Yoshio appreciates the detailed backstories and traits, thinking it might be a solid game. Layla in to stop the girls, asking about the earlier light. Kem explains it poured from her Bible. Another chime tells Yoshio he'll act as their god, guiding the village to thrive. He can't control them directly, but can send a daily prophecy via the Bible, one page at a time, and the game urges him to test it. Yoshio is intrigued by this setup. He's amazed he can write commands freely instead of picking from a list, but sets that aside for now, assuming they'll only follow basic orders. After some effort, he proudly crafts a divine command, claiming if the AI grasps even a fraction of it, he'll call it a godly game. He hits enter to see how this advanced tech handles it. The Bible glows again, and a shocked Kem opens it, then drops to her knees in gratitude. God performs an incredible miracle, prompting her to tell everyone she's received a message from the God of Fate. She shows the Bible to the surprised men, making Russ weep with passion. His wife and daughter say sorry for not knowing how to read, and since Gams can only read a little, he asks his sister to speak the message out loud. Seeing everyone's eager looks, she gets ready to read, presenting herself as the God of Fate. Yoshio claims he drove the monsters away with his miracle, promising to give them one miracle each day from now on. Yoshio announces that he wants them to obey his messages and live well. He orders them to chop down trees and make a safe place to stay. As his instructions are read out loud, Yoshio is shocked and pushes his chair back. Layla is thrilled to have God looking after their happiness, and Russ is grateful for his kindness in giving them one command daily. The man is amazed that the characters grasp everything he wrote, stunned as he says the game's technology is far beyond its time, calling it truly impressive. Yoshio is astonished to watch the characters react to his words, though he wonders if they're just following a preset pattern. He's still curious about what the game really is. After getting the message, Kem tells the group to split up and cut some trees. Russ points out that even if they cut the trees, they can't use them as wood right away. They need to process and dry them first. Both the priestess and Yoshio are caught off guard by this, with Yoshio realizing the game's rules are a bit more detailed. Russ explains that fresh wood has to dry out before becoming usable timber, or it might twist. The priestess and Neat confess they didn't know this. Russ figures that God, with his greater wisdom, has his own reasons and suggests they cut and gather the trees first, earning the deity's thanks. He grabs tools from the wagon, and while he and Gams chop trees, the girls search the area for food. Yoshio discovers he can use his mouse to scroll and zoom out from the scene. Looking at the narrow strip of visible land on the escape path, Yoshio confirms the view grows as the characters explore new areas. He wonders how time works in the game, questioning if it might run in real time, though he thinks that'd be impossible to create. Another note appears, explaining that as the God of Fate, he can spend fate points to cause miracles. These points come from how much the villagers feel they owe him and are shown on the screen. In the top right corner, his fate points are at 97. The more the villagers appreciate him, the higher his points will climb, and adding more residents will boost them further. As his points rise with the villagers' gratitude for his predictions, he realizes they'll shift depending on what he prophesies. The note finishes by saying that if the village thrives and grows, the miracle's impact will get stronger. Yoshio checks his miracles tab, starting with options like bringing helpful visitors, such as a traveling doctor or hunters, or reuniting with escaped villagers. Seeing he can shape people's fates, he also spots weather controls, but notices his points are low, wondering what to pick. Yoshio decides to listen to the villagers and choose based on that. Overhearing Roos and Gams as they cut trees, the shopkeeper starts chatting, giving praise to the God of Fate. Fate chats about the weather and chemistry, but gets only short one-word replies. Seeing no real talk will happen, he shifts to the girls gathering food. When Kem asks, Layla says they've packed enough supplies for 2 weeks. The priestess wishes for a steady food source by then, and Yoshio thinks about relying on a peddler's visits to buy food. He figures that getting food themselves would mean heading to the mountain, and he grows curious about what they might find there. Yoshio debates sending Gams to scout the next day but worries about splitting up their only fighter. If he's aiming to win the game smartly, he could send the less useful Carol to check the area. Watching her pick mushrooms, he realizes that a reckless move could wipe them all out, and that guilt would haunt him. Scanning the Miracles tab again, he spots an option to summon familiars. He thinks one could expand the map's visible range and help them out. He finds over 50 familiar types, like slimes and unicorns, but decides a bird would work best for scouting. Still, their costs are high, way more points than he has. Even basic ones like cats or dogs are out of reach. All he can afford is a chick. Though it might lay eggs for food, Yoshio grumbles it's useless for scouting, frustrated that he's stuck with no way to earn more points. A chime interrupts, revealing another way to boost his fate points, a payment system. The game's instructions welcome him to microtransactions. For every 1,000 yen he spends, he'll get 10 points. Yoshio rubs his head, annoyed that the game uses such an irritating setup. While he expects payment systems in games, he's shocked to see it in an alpha test version. Even with his current points too low for a familiar, Yoshio calculates that 20,000 yen could snag him a cat or small dog. Beyond familiars, extra points could ease the villagers' lives. He digs through a drawer, finding over 10,000 yen in savings. He figures selling his books and games could bring in more cash, and he considers auctioning off unopened raffle prizes too. Later that night, he ponders his options while checking on the villagers. They're settling into the wagon to sleep, though it's just 9 o'clock. Carol says goodnight to Gams, with Kem chiming in too. Gams stays outside by the fire. Russ urges him to rest, but Gams insists someone must keep watch since a monster could strike any time. The father comforts him, pointing out they've seen God's miracles firsthand. The father adds that prophecies prove the God of fate is guarding them. Roos argues monsters won't dare come near with God's power, but Gams isn't convinced. Yoshio quietly apologizes to them, wishing he had that kind of strength. He sighs, noting they might think they're totally safe because God can do anything, and wonders if he should admit he's not all-powerful. Yoshio hesitates, knowing his powers have limits. He fears revealing this might lower their gratitude, cutting off his point gains from their thanks. Pushing the issue aside, he dives into researching wood manufacturing online. He muses about how long it's been since he last studied something seriously, having spent years casually watching videos or messing around on Reddit instead. Yoshio reflects that if he had spent his wasted time on other activities, he might have offered the villagers better guidance, and if he hadn't been so disorganized from the start, he could have had the funds to boost his fate points. He mentions that the villagers might have enjoyed a calmer life if they'd had a regular worker as their player instead of him. With a sigh, he questions why he's dwelling on past regrets over a game, which is supposed to be fun. Glancing at his messy reflection in the window, he clutches his side in discomfort. He lifts his shirt to reveal a deep abdominal scar, explaining that it aches in cold weather. This triggers a painful memory of how he got it. A creepy stalker was bothering his little sister, so Yoshio confronted the boy and warned him to back off. When the boy didn't reply, Yoshio grabbed his collar, insisting he promised to leave her alone. The boy mumbled something unclear and then, to Yoshio's shock, stabbed him in the stomach with a switchblade as his sister screamed. The stalker pulled the knife out, grinning wildly as Yoshio collapsed. In a panic, Yoshio shouted for help and fled, blood dripping behind him, leaving his sister there. He recalls this as the turning point, after which nothing went right no matter how hard he tried. Shaking off these memories, he notes he's back at his computer, surrounded by clutter, and chooses to dive deeper into gaming. Yoshio stares at his computer screen with a sad look, accepting that he's run out of options as the sun comes up. The bright light streaming through his window wakes him, and he sees it's already morning after staying up all night studying wood manufacturing. He fell asleep without noticing and checks the time, realizing at 5:07 that it's been ages since he last woke up so early. Back at his computer, he looks at the villagers and sees they're already awake, with Russ and Gams getting some logs ready. Meanwhile, Kim is praying and Layla and her daughter are gathering herbs. It hits him that this game runs in real time, and he starts thinking about what prophecy to share today. His godly ideas stop when his stomach rumbles, reminding him he skipped dinner last night because he was so into the game and ate all his room snacks. Heading downstairs, he hopes there's food left in the fridge but stops short when he hears voices behind the closed kitchen door. His sister asks their mom for soy sauce, and he presses himself against the wall, nervous, realizing it's breakfast time. His dad mentions he'll likely have overtime today, and his sister tells him not to push too hard. Yoshio hasn't talked to his younger sister since the stalker incident or to his dad since their big fight about him finding a job. He pictures himself walking into the kitchen and asking for breakfast, but quickly dismisses it as ridiculous since everyone's eating to fuel their busy day, and he, jobless, feels he can't face them. Feeling down, he slips back to his room and decides to do some muscle training, a habit he picked up after the incident to overcome his fear and weakness by getting stronger. A chime pulls his focus back to the village of fate, where Roos catches his eye again. Yoshio advises his daughter not to push herself too hard, but she insists on continuing her work, happy to contribute. He asks her to reach out if she needs assistance or runs into trouble, and she cheerfully agrees. Watching this, Yoshio reflects that the villagers in the game seem to live more vibrantly than he does. Feeling down, he faces the monitor and cautions them not to rely too heavily on a flawed god. At that moment, the Bible glows as a new oracle arrives, and Kem excitedly shares the news with everyone. Kem announces to the gathered villagers that a prophecy has come from the god of fate. Standing before them, she recites it aloud. Yoshio explains that he's lost half his power, now limited to granting small miracles and keeping watch over them as before. He urges his loyal followers to unite with others nearby to endure, offering them his blessing. A quiet settles over the group as they absorb this latest prophecy, while Yoshio, troubled, hides his face in his hand, lost in thought. Yoshio wonders if the villagers might lose faith in a god who offers excuses, thinking he should have come up with a stronger explanation. Kem interrupts his gloom, marveling at how wonderful it is that God still watches over them. To his amazement, Roos praises him for the blessing and suggests his weakened state might stem from fighting demons. Roos decides they can't keep leaning on God and vows to bolster their defenses. Yoshio is stunned that they turned his pessimistic words into something positive. Noticing his fate points have risen to 110, Yoshio realizes the prophecy's content determines how many points he earns. Yet with only 13 points gained in a day, he doubts he can trigger a useful miracle even weekly, leaving the villagers' lives unchanged. Overhearing the girls, he catches Kem saying it's odd to sleep in wagon, and they need a wall or fence against monsters, while Lyle laments their lack of salt. Yoshio knows he could ease some fears with more points. If Yoshio had more fate points, he could erase some of their worries, but he hesitates to spend them. His alternative is earning points through the payment system, so he's listed all his unopened raffle prizes for auction, aiming for 20 to 30,000 yen. Glancing at his comics and old games, he figures he could sell them at a used bookstore for fast cash. The catch is that selling them means leaving the house, something he hasn't done, beyond late nights, in about 2 years. While debating his next move, Yoshio focuses on the game, realizing it'd be a shame to lose it entirely if the villagers were completely defeated. With no other options, the young man resolves to step outside. As he dresses and checks the mirror, he sees he hasn't gained much weight, but his clothes feel snug. As a child, he imagined his 30s as a time of sophistication, assuming he'd naturally grow into a polished adult, far from what he sees now. Staring at the weary, unkempt man in the mirror, Yoshio grows anxious and considers delaying his outing, deciding he'll go tomorrow if he feels up to it. Sitting back at the monitor, he watches Carol merrily walking down a path with sticks in her arms. She stumbles over a rock, falling flat and scattering the sticks everywhere. Yoshio watches, startled but helpless, as Carol clutches her scraped knee. Undaunted, she brushes away her tears and gathers the sticks again. Yoshio bravely continues her march back to the cart, catching the surprised Yoshio off guard as he scans for the other villagers. He spots Gams and Roos hauling logs while the girls wash clothes in the chilly weather, understanding that things have changed since yesterday. Determined to give his all, he heads toward the door, leaving his shocked mother in the hallway. She's puzzled to see him leaving as it's unusual and asks what's happening, but he just says he'll return soon before grabbing his bike. Yoshio passes by his stunned neighbors, ignoring their stares and whispers as he rides off. Feeling overwhelmed by self-hatred and guilt, Yoshio imagines his neighbors mocking him for being jobless despite his age. Ashamed, he shuts his eyes, weighed down by his emotions, but then recalls the villager's spirit, pushing his negative thoughts away. He peels faster to the bookstore, where he sells his games and books, then browses the shelves for anything useful. His neighbor's judgmental looks and words echo in his mind, but he presses on, determined to move forward. At the bookstore, Yoshio comes across several isekai manga, observing how characters in those stories thank others for sharing modern knowledge. He thinks this could apply to his game, though the context differs, but he's too broke to buy even a cheap book costing a few hundred yen. Riding home, he passes a cake shop, remembering old visits there with his family. The past feels distant as he focuses on his current goal. Inside the cake shop, the vendor greets him warmly, and as Yoshio eyes the displays, he recalls choosing treats with his sister as kids. Keeping his head down, he orders 4 puddings, feeling it's a small indulgence, then leaves. Back home, he finds his mother in the living room and gives her the pudding bag. She's grateful for the unexpected gift, and Yoshio shyly explains he got enough for everyone before heading upstairs. In his room, Yoshio questions why he's embarrassed, thinking a worthless person shouldn't feel good about one small act. Downcast, he stares at the sky, wondering aloud what he's doing with his life at this age after selling his stuff. He earned 20,000 yen, boosting his fate points to 310, and watches the villagers share a meal by the campfire, pondering what miracle to perform. The day before, he discovered a system letting him revisit past events, sparking his curiosity. Yoshio finds the feature to review villagers' past talks cool, but hesitates, feeling it's like spying. Wanting to fulfill their wishes, he gives in and tests it, listening to a chat the girls had while he was away. As they washed clothes, they praised the nice weather and the river's convenience near camp. Layla mentions wanting a bath but worries about monster attacks while undressed, sparking a lighthearted exchange. Layla says she's fine with villagers seeing her since her husband and daughter don't mind, and Gams wouldn't care, but when Carol agrees about Gams, Kem sharply disagrees. She insists her calm brother is still a man, showing her strong sibling attachment. Yoshio decides Layla and Carol aren't concerns, but Kem's brother complex seems deeper than he thought. The talk stays casual until Layla brings up a past monster attack, shifting the mood. Layla recalls a monster swarm that devastated the village, and Kem adds it was a big place with stone walls and multiple hunters besides Gams. Despite their defenses, many died when the monsters overran them. Curious, Yoshio, as the god of fate, digs deeper into the girls' conversation logs for more details. The village once housed hundreds, but a massive monster raid overwhelmed it. They fought hard for a while, but the losses were heavy, leaving a lasting mark on the survivors. In the game, the village was eventually overwhelmed, forcing Yoshio and others to flee with some villagers on horse wagons. By the time the villagers noticed the danger, only they were left, though they escaped the monsters and headed into the forest. Their horse wagon got damaged during the escape, making long-distance travel tough. With a better grasp of the game's world, Yoshio now sees why the story includes the escaped villagers reuniting. Watching the screen, he vows to bring them all back together. Later, his mother calls him downstairs for dinner, interrupting his game. He's shocked to find his emotionless father at the kitchen table so early. Since his father became distant, they only meet a few times a month, exchanging brief, uninterested words like "how's it going?" or "do what you want." This tense relationship started after a major argument, and calling his father polite wouldn't be quite right. It'd be more true to say his father has no interest in Yoshio. He asks if his sister Saki is working late, and his mother says yes. Unlike Yoshio, Saki has done well, landing a job in her dream industry and seeming happy, even with overtime. Yoshio's mother then chats about her day, mentioning she got handmade tsukumana from a neighbor named Okiku. She offers some to try and shares how she met the woman. Okiku, an older landlady, lives in a large old house nearby. When Yoshio was younger, he'd play there with a friend, and Okiku would give them candy. His family's home isn't as fancy as Okiku's, but it's a decent-sized house with a garden. Yoshio can stay there as a NEET because his father earns a good living. After thanking his mother for dinner, Yoshio quickly gets up to leave. He takes his plates to the sink, and his mother tells him to grab a pudding, asking if his father wants one too. She explains that Saki bought them. His father's eyes open at this, and Yoshio glances at him anxiously until he takes the pudding. Back in his room, pudding eaten, Yoshio returns to the game. He sees everyone but Gams has gone to the horse wagon. As the warrior sits alone by the campfire, he notes that Gam's night watch efforts are greatly valued. Gams quietly tends the fire with a stick, and Yoshio thinks he's a reliable guy, his calm presence reminding him of his father. Gams is the only fighter among the villagers. Russ and his family are useless in a fight, and while Kem can heal with magic, she's not built for combat. Turning from the screen, Yoshio says out loud that both he and the villagers rely on Gams, wishing he had more help. He knows he can use fate points to summon people to the village, but calling one person takes a lot of points. There's a cheaper option to summon someone random, though it's risky, like a gamble. If luck's against him, a criminal could appear and bring chaos. He also knows getting addicted to something like pay-to-win mechanics is a dangerous trap he should avoid. Plus, Yoshio really wants a familiar too, feeling like he's missing something. Yoshio scratches his head, frustrated by how anxious a simple game makes him, and decides he'll think it over tomorrow since he's worn out from his first outing in ages. He says sorry to Gams, heads to bed, and wishes the villagers good night, only to jump when an alarm blares from the game. Shocked, he sees an attack warning flash on the screen, and a calm but firm Gams shouts for everyone to get up before the assault starts, rousing the other villagers. From a horse wagon, the group watches him through flapping cloth as he faces the woods, back to them, preparing his weapons. He grips his dagger and carefully pulls his long sword from the scabbard on his back, announcing without looking that he senses monsters. The warrior orders Kim to guard everyone and stay by the wagon, no matter what, while a scared Russ tells Leylon Carroll to remain inside because it's risky. The little girl then asks Gams about his condition. As the warrior gears up to battle solo, Sem insists she'll join him, but her brother shuts it down, explaining her healing magic is all she has, and he needs her to look after the others. Holding back tears, she grudgingly agrees, while a frantic Yoshio shouts at the monitor, clutching it tightly, unable to see the monsters in the dark. Suddenly, two shadowy figures burst from the bushes near the fire, growling fiercely at Gams. The god of fate watches as the game labels them black dogs, stray dogs turned into savage, meat-eating beasts with superior strength, and in rare cases, poisonous fangs. Yoshio frets over this, pointing out that even though Gams is tough, he's facing two alone. Gams locks eyes with the approaching monsters, crossing his blades as they snarl and close in, while Yoshio starts hoping aloud that Gams pulls through. Then realizing he's a god, Yoshio grabs his mace, hunting for a miracle to use as Gams stares down the beasts. The black dogs lunge together, trying to hit him from both sides, but with perfect timing, the skilled warrior swings both swords, striking them simultaneously. They collapse a short distance away, whimpering their last before dying, and Gams, stern-faced, steps toward his victory. He nudges one creature's paw with a kick to ensure it's dead, then drives his long sword into the fallen dog to confirm it. Yoshio cheers loudly, calling the warrior awesome as he stares at the screen, thrilled. Sem walks up to her big brother, asking if he's alright, but her smile fades to worry when Gams says sorry and admits he'll rely on her now, right before he collapses, leaving her stunned. Seeing this, she cries out for her big brother as he lies still, drenched in sweat. Yoshio grabs the screen with both hands, his face twisted in shock and fear for Gam's fate, calling it a perfect win despite the collapse. Kem kneels, cradling her unconscious brother's head in her lap, while Rus hurries to assist. The warrior's face twists in pain, soaked in sweat, as the god of fate watches, helpless, over the village's key fighter. Kem clutches her brother's lifeless body, shouting at him to snap out of it as she feels his warmth fade, screaming in desperation. Shocked, Yoshio seizes the monitor and shouts at it, trying to understand what's happening with Gams. Rus nears the frantic priestess, urging her to relax, and takes her brother's arm, detecting a faint pulse but noticing his body growing colder and his face turning pale. Looking closer at the arm, he spots a deep wound. Alarmed by the wound's dark hue, Rus glances at the black dog Gams had stabbed, realizing it bit him and suspecting its venomous fangs. He asks Kem if she knows any antidote spells. Hearing this, Yoshio clings to hope, remembering the priestess's healing abilities might save Gams. But that hope fades when she sadly admits she hasn't mastered antidote magic yet, then hurriedly asks Rus if he has anything helpful. Rus, once a shopkeeper, looks down and says sorry, explaining they lack any antidote potions in their bags. Carol, clinging to her mother's skirt, watches in terror, grasping the grim situation. Kem trembles with grief and fear, holding her brother tightly, begging him not to go. She lifts her eyes skyward, pleading with God to spare him, promising anything in return as tears pour down her face. The god of fate, shaken, ponders his next move, knowing Gams' death would end everything and wondering if he can act. Seeing the villagers' distress, he resolves to intervene, recalling his divine power. He pushes fear aside, steps forward boldly, and announces that only a miracle can fix this. Reflecting on the game's rules, he remembers a way to reverse this dire moment and opens the miracles menu. He scans the options, dismissing useless ones like a peddler or hunters, until he finds Traveling Doctor arrives. Noting its high 300-point cost, but sure it includes an antidote, he rushes to select it. He shouts that even triggering it doesn't promise instant results, yet he's forced to bet on it. The late-night outburst startles his mother downstairs. His mother calls up to him, but Yoshio, engrossed, barely notices, wondering if a doctor appearing now would seem too perfect. Glancing at his clock, he sees it's past midnight, types a command, and waits for the Kemp's outcome. Kem still grips her brother, urging him to respond, when a voice sounds behind her. A hooded figure steps from the woods across the fire. A leather bag hangs at the figure's side, his face set with purpose. Kem, still holding her brother, demands to know who he is. Rus, anxious, grabs Gams' spare blade, aiming it at the stranger as the family watches fearfully. The man calms them, introducing himself as a traveling doctor. While Russ stays wary, the girls exchange doubtful looks, and Yoshio thinks their suspicion of this timely arrival makes sense. With a sly smile, Yoshio hits the enter key, and the Bible beside Ken springs open, shining brightly once more. Its pages flip on their own until they land on the latest prophecy from the god of fate. Reading the glowing words, the stunned priestess can't stop her tears and lifts her head to the sky, shouting her deep thanks to the deity before hugging her brother tightly again. Russ watches this unfold, and the doctor announces that this was indeed the correct spot after all. He requests permission to examine Gams, and the surprised shopkeeper reluctantly agrees. The doctor steps forward and stands over Gams and his sister, who are still clinging to each other. Kem lowers her eyes and pleads with the doctor to save him, while Carol prays for his well-being. Inspecting the festering wound caused by the black dog, the doctor quickly identifies the problem. He opens his bag, takes out a vial, and pours some of its liquid into Gam's mouth, then spills the rest onto the open sore. The warrior's face twists in agony as he reacts to the remedy, but it soon calms as the cure works, and color begins to return. Color flushes back to his cheeks, and the villagers cheer at this turn of events. Yoshio breathes a sigh of relief and leans back in his chair, expressing his happiness that the miracle succeeded and the doctor arrived just in time. He mentions needing to thank the long-haired physician, though he's uncertain about their gender. Kem keeps holding her brother in comfort, while Russ grabs the Bible and reads its message aloud. The god of fate had written that he used his power to lead the doctor to them, stating that Gams isn't meant to join him yet and will recover. He promises his kindness to the courageous warrior and adds that challenges will persist from now on, but assures them he's watching over them. Yoshio attempts to phrase it in a grand, godly tone but doubts if it sounds right, while the young man sighs in relief as Russ interprets it as intended. Speaking to the group, he praises their efforts and says he can only watch from here on. The next morning, Layla and Carol venture into the forest to pick berries. The little girl wonders if Gams will improve after eating them, and her mother cheerfully confirms he will. Meanwhile, an anxious Russ takes over Gams' guard duties in the forest, gripping his sword and turning in every direction, vowing to protect everyone now. He's startled by rustling in the nearby bushes and stumbles backward, only to see a white rabbit hop out and scamper off. Back at camp, Sem kneels beside her resting brother as the doctor grinds herbs with a mortar. After a moment of doubt, the priestess asks him why he came to their area. The physician explains that his family has been healers for generations and that this place, known as the Forbidden Forest, is full of both monsters and plentiful herbs. The night before, as he finished collecting herbs and was about to set up camp, he noticed a beam of light in the forest. Puzzled by the odd sight, he wasn't sure whether to investigate, but a restless feeling in his chest pushed him to follow the light. Kem faithfully declares that it was divine guidance. It must have been a higher power guiding them, and the physician admits that, despite prioritizing Mother Nature and not following any specific deity, last night's event might truly have been a divine intervention. Yoshio folds his arms, piecing together that the doctor is agnostic, acknowledging gods might exist but not fully committing to belief, then yawns from tiredness. Kem inquires if the doctor plans to leave soon, but he explains that even though the toughest part is over, he's not ready to leave his patient just yet. The doctor assures Kem he can stay a little longer and asks if they'd mind him remaining with them. Kem's expression lights up, warmly inviting him to stay as long as he wants, though she mentions they currently lack a proper home and wonders if he's fine with that. Yoshio watches with quiet relief, grateful they were saved and pleased the doctor will stay in the village. He considers the cramped living situation, noting the wagon is already full, meaning adding the doctor would force someone to sleep outside. Even though they survive this time, Yoshio knows it's only a brief break from danger. He realizes that another attack by black dogs could wipe them out completely. Although Gams was rescued, he'll likely be unable to move well for days, and Rus isn't strong enough to fill his role. Yoshio decides they need a secure place to live and ponders how to spend his fate points to make it happen. The doctor steps in with a solution, revealing a nearby abandoned mine-ruined cave where they can stay. The cave offers shelter from weather and even has old miners' tools left behind. Yoshio is astonished by this discovery, amazed the doctor knew about such a spot nearby, and grateful the villagers now have a safe place to rest. Russ, thrilled, asks the doctor to guide them there, and they set off. The cave is just 5 minutes from their campsite, close enough to return later for their wood. The horse-drawn wagon starts moving toward the new location. The wagon travels along tight roads beside a cliff until it arrives at a tunnel sealed with boards and 2 doors. The doctor explains that the bigger door was for moving goods, while the smaller one leads into the tunnels. Long ago, people mined there, but after finding richer ore nearby, they turn the old site into a living and storage space. The doctor and Russ push open the large doors, and the villagers guide the wagon into the cave. Inside, the doctor taps a lantern on the wall, making the ore inside glow brightly, soon lighting up all the other lamps in the cave. The light shows a large area with a table, chairs, crates, and several doors carved into the walls. The villagers are stunned by how big it is, and Yoshio is equally impressed. He sees the place is dusty and worn, but it's a huge improvement over the wagon, which excites Ruse as he explores. The doors open into rooms, and the doctor notes that the miners carved them out for personal spaces. The group is too caught up in their new home to pay much attention to his words. Back in the wagon, Kem gently holds her brother's hand, telling him they've reached a safe new place and wishing for his recovery. Meanwhile, Layla spots a freshwater spring in the cave wall, plus a stone furnace and basic cooking tools, which she's thrilled to find. Layla happily declares they can start housework, delighting her daughter, but first she rolls up her sleeves, determined to clean the place thoroughly. Yoshio expresses deep gratitude to the doctor for bringing them to this safe haven. As time passes, the doctor cares for Gams in one of the rooms while he heals. In the main area, Layla hushes everyone to keep from bothering the resting warrior, urging them to tidy up so well that Gams will be amazed when he wakes. The villagers are busy organizing the cave, moving items around and cleaning the floor. They take useless things outside but keep anything that might be fixed in a corner. Carol cleans the floor in one room and happily looks at the bed, saying that with 4 rooms available, she'll share one with Gams, dreaming of sleeping beside him. Kem overhears this and stares at Carol from the doorway, quietly telling herself that it's clear her big brother would share a room with her instead. Kem thinks Carol is still young and doesn't think much about it, but feels Gams spoils her too much. She believes he should say no to Carol, even if she's a child, if it's something he doesn't want. Meanwhile, Lyle listens to Kem without her knowing and then walks away. Yoshio worries about Kem and Carol's bond, but sees they're getting along as villagers. He thinks that if they can make the cave a decent place to live, there won't be any housing problems for now, so he can finally begin to focus on other things. Yoshio feels good about the idea of truly building a village and lets out a pleased sigh. He gets up from his chair and stretches, noticing it's already noon. His eyes feel tired, and his stomach growls, so he decides to grab some food. As he leaves his room, the door across from him opens too, and he comes face to face with his little sister, Saki. She points out his messy appearance, and Yoshio freezes, saying her name aloud. Saki pushes her hair back while looking at him. Yoshio asks if she's been on a break, but she doesn't answer him at all. Saki then tells Yoshio to step aside so she can go downstairs to eat. He nervously says he's heading to the first floor too. Hearing this, Saki firmly orders him not to use the bathroom there, standing with her hands on her hips and glaring at him. Yoshio turns to her and starts to respond, but suddenly remembers the stalker incident, which fills his mind with shame. He looks down, gives in, and turns away, promising not to use the first-floor bathroom. As he keeps going down the stairs, Saki, annoyed, tells him to at least argue back a bit. She calls him weak and asks if he thinks she's dumb. Back in his room, Yoshio reflects that Saki has been much grumpier since the stalker incident. Every time they meet now, the mood gets heady. It wasn't always like this. They used to be so close they'd hang out together. Now everything's changed, and he feels sad, wondering if they'd still be tight siblings without that event. Yoshio wonders what might have been if the incident never happened. A sharp pain hits his scar as he recalls the stalker encounter, but he forces himself to keep going, knowing regret won't fix anything. He decides to check on the villagers and focuses on the cave's common room, where cleaning is almost done. Layla remarks on how the place looks, and Ruse asks where Ken is. His wife says she's with Gams, checking on him. Carol wants to go too, but her dad tells her to give them space for now. Instead, he suggests exploring the rest of the cave with her, and she happily agrees, excited to show Gams around later when he's better. Meanwhile, the doctor writes notes while Gams rests in a bed nearby. Kem comes in and asks to take care of her brother while the doctor rests. He says yes, noting the poison's effects have calmed down, and tells her to call him if anything odd happens. Along with Gams, Kem takes his hand and assures him she's there. Yoshio sees that Gams' health is improving steadily. Stable thought it was okay to step away from him for a moment, but then his eyes caught a pop-up window that said, "Dream coming out of the warrior," sparking his curiosity about what it could mean. Eagerly he clicked it, and to his surprise, the screen transformed entirely. As the new image became clear, he found himself looking at an unfamiliar place where a younger Gams stepped through some doors. A clerk handed Gams a purse filled with his reward for defeating monsters, praising him for finishing his first mission. Yoshio then understood he was seeing Gam's dream unfold, and Gams expressed his thanks to the clerk. Gams turned down an offer from other adventurers to go for drinks, explaining that his little sister was waiting for him at home. Yoshio figured he was talking about Kem, reflecting that Gams had a simpler, more innocent time in his past. When the warrior got home and walked inside, he saw his father at a table, drinking heavily with empty bottles scattered around. Frustrated, Gams pointed out that his father was drunk again, which made the man angrily hurl a bottle toward him and shout about his disrespectful tone. Gams, standing firm, didn't back down. The warrior tossed a purse onto the table as payment for his father looking after Ken while he was away working. The man peeked inside the purse, already thinking about buying more liquor, but when Gams asked where his sister was, his father went quiet. Going down a staircase, Gams was devastated to find his sister in nothing but tattered rags, lying on a filthy cloth on the floor, nearly starved. He scooped her up, urging her to hold on, asking how long she'd gone without food, while a stunned Yoshio remarked that this was a terrible scene. Furious and trembling, Gams said sorry to her for not leaving that awful place with her earlier. As he stood to leave the house, his father tried to block him, claiming he'd only been careless because he was drunk and promising to keep their deal from now on. Unmoved and outraged, Gams ordered him to step aside or face serious consequences, giving him a fierce look that made the man instantly comply. Walking through the snowy night with his sister on his back, the girl asked Gams where they were headed. She wondered aloud where they were going, and Gams answered that it'd be anywhere but back there. Kem worried that their father would be furious if they didn't return soon, but Gams firmly said they'd never see him again, so she didn't need to be afraid. She confessed that their parents likely hated her for being a troublesome child since they always scolded her, but Gams shot back that it was their parents who were wrong. He revealed they even planned to sell Kem as a slave for being bad, something she didn't deserve. They even called her worthless, saying she should at least be useful somehow, and as Yoshio realized the awful conditions they'd endured, Gams stopped walking. He set his sister down, turned to her, and told her not to see those people as her parents anymore, urging her to erase them from her mind. He offered her a life with him from then on if she wanted, and she cheerfully said she'd be happy as long as her big brother was with her. Embracing her, Gams vowed they'd have lots of fun and find happiness together, and she nodded in agreement. The screen returned to normal, and Yoshio realized this explained Kem's strong attachment to her brother, seeing how she came to rely on such a dependable older sibling. As Kem gripped Gam's hand, the warrior woke up and apologized for making her worry. With tears in her eyes, she hugged him, relieved he was okay. The others soon noticed Gams was awake, and Rust praised the doctor, while Layla and Carol rejoiced, thankful he was back. Yoshio leaned back to relax, observing that all the villagers were thrilled too, as there wasn't anyone quite like Gams out there. Gams is a reliable and likable character, naturally popular due to his good looks and strength, unlike the young man who nervously laughs as he describes him. The young man explains that Gams would always put his life on the line to protect his sister, confident that their connection will never weaken. He keeps laughing uneasily until he realizes tears are streaming down his face, wiping them away while questioning why he hasn't changed despite his deep regret over past events, enough to make him cry. Slumping over his desk, he feels overwhelmed. In frustration, he insists he wants to transform as tears still pour from his eyes. Yoshi's father and sister head out early for work, with Saki complimenting the necktie he once gave him. From his bedroom window, Yoshio watches them leave with a heavy heart until a sound from his computer catches his attention. On the screen, he sees Layla cooking in the cave, instructing Carol to set out the dishes as she prepares the meal before Gams and the doctor come back from Patrol 3. Several days have passed since the villagers settled into the cave, now equipped with everything needed for daily life, thanks to everyone pitching in. Their way of living has greatly improved because of this teamwork. As Rust fixes some furniture and Ken constructs a building, Yoshio reflects on how different this secure, well-furnished cave is from the rough, temporary camp they had before, deciding that paying for this miracle was worth it. Checking on the patrol in the forest, Yoshio recognizes that the doctor is the greatest gift from the miracle. Out in a clearing, Gams stands ready with his weapons, facing a fierce boar charging straight at him. He bravely blocks the beast with his crossed blades, holding his stance as it pushes him back. While Gams keeps the boar under control, the doctor pulls out his longbow, takes careful aim at the boar's head, and releases an arrow that strikes true. The arrow lodges itself in the boar's eye, and from the bushes, the physician cautions Gams not to overexert himself while still healing from his injuries. Gams expresses gratitude, calling him Mouse, a traveling doctor summoned by Yoshio through a miracle. Miss excels not only at making medicines and healing, but also at archery, perfectly balancing Gam's close combat abilities. On top of that, the doctor can use plant manipulating magic, which he applied to the wood they needed. Normally, gathering logs would take months, but most finished it in an instant, also guiding them to the cave with almost unbelievable skill. Yoshio sighs, wishing Mouse would stay with the village, though he's currently just a guest, and his background remains a mystery. The conditions for him joining permanently are unclear, leaving Yoshio annoyed, especially since he spent 30,000 yen worth of fate points to bring him here, realizing the game isn't so simple. Gams and the doctor tie up the boar and haul it back to the cave, where Kem and Carol welcome them in the main chamber. Russ is amazed by the catch they brought, and Carol cheers as her mother announces they'll have meat for dinner. She adds, though, that they're running low on salt and seasoning, which are vital for cooking and storing meat. Yoshio agrees this is a real problem, pointing out that even with plenty of crops, fish, and game near the cave, they'll need more than just abundance to thrive. The villagers decide they need a steady food supply, so they begin creating a new farm. They soon realize they'll need seeds, salt, and seasonings for their crops. The leader considers whether a peddler's visit to Miracle could bring a vendor to the village. Still, he excitedly shares his bigger plan to summon a golem as a helper, no matter what it takes. A golem is a human-like figure made of rock that can follow basic instructions. This creature never tires and can labor all day long. Even better, the player can direct it with a gaming controller. These strong, rocky beings could solve the village's shortage of workers with their endless energy and power. For Yoshio, the best part is using a controller to guide the golem, letting him take an active role instead of just watching the village. However, summoning the golem costs 700 fate points, which equals 7,000 yen in real money. He already used 300 points to summon Mouse, nearly emptying his reserves for a time. Thankfully, Gams and his daily prophecies have boosted the villagers' gratitude toward God, raising his points to 160. He gains 10 points each day from their thankfulness, so he plans to save up for the golem if he avoids spending for almost 2 months. He rubs his head, thinking how long that wait will feel, and admits he can't buy more fate points because his savings are gone. In the past, he was careful with money, preserving his childhood savings and the extra cash his father gave him when cheerful. But he has since spent it all on the Village of Fate. Looking up, he sees the villagers happily eating dinner together, then sighs, stands, and goes downstairs to brew some coffee. Later, while drinking his coffee, he recalls that Kem and Gams were building something together a few days ago, curious about their project. Kem cheerfully says it's nearly done, asking her brother if it's okay to craft it as they did. In front of them is a rough shrine to the god of fate, its figure carved from a tree trunk. Gams pats Kem's head, assuring her that her heart matters most, confident their deity feels their intent. Miss approaches, wondering if it's an altar and statue for their god, and the priestess agrees, apologizing for its rough look. They built this spot to honor him and leave gifts, and Yoshio is glad for the villagers' devotion. He notices the statue's crude shape makes it unclear if it's male or female. He always thought he was a male god, but now questions the god of fate's true gender. Kem sets 3 fruits on the altar as a gift while the villagers pray. The fruits glow and disappear as they pray, startling Yoshio at first, though he figures vanishing offerings make sense in a world where God exists. He then sees his fate points rise by 1, linking it to the offering. A message appears, explaining that points come from both gratitude and gifts, with pricier items earning more, urging him to support the villagers like a game show host. Taking this in, he wonders if he should ask the villagers to offer unwanted items, though valuable ones would yield more points. He doesn't want to trouble them, so he decides against pushing too hard. Kem's Bible glows with a new prophecy, and Yoshio thanks the villagers for their feelings as they gather to hear it. Miss watches with crossed arms from a wall as the god of fate speaks. The young man tells the villagers they don't need to strain themselves and can give him extra or unneeded goods, which he can turn into miracles. He wonders if he sounded like he was begging, but the villagers sincerely call him humble and kind. Yoshio remarks on their innocence, saying they'd likely fall for schemes or shady religions in modern Japan, and admits they're being fooled by one now. The next day, Roos asks Gams to assist him, and Yoshio watches as they drag a log into the cave, set it on the altar, pray, and make it disappear. Surprised they can offer something so large, he questions if they'll give offerings daily and if praising God brings them joy. Noticing it's already afternoon, he stretches until his mother calls out that a package arrived for him. He senses her annoyance, goes downstairs, takes the delivery, and is shocked to see it's addressed to him from the Village of Fate. Unwilling to believe it's a gift from the game world, he claims aloud it's probably from a contest he won, while privately guessing it's just extra stuff from the game company, like a guide or notes. He sighs, feeling silly for overreacting as his mother opens the box. Yoshio's eyes widen in disbelief when he sees 3 strange fruits from the game inside. His mother can't name them and casually asks if he wants exotic fruit from somewhere. He agrees to try some for dessert, observing that one looks like an apple but smells like citrus. Remembering the villagers love them, he takes a bite, enjoys the amazing taste, and decides the creators must have cleverly sent a rare Japanese fruit from abroad. Happy with the tasty gift, he has no complaints. The next day, he thanks the villagers for their offering, urging them not to overdo it or waste food, and says he'll take non-food items if they're short, encouraging them to prioritize themselves since daily offerings aren't needed. He thinks that once he earns enough points for a golem, he'll surely help them all. Seeing Kem clean the statue, Yoshio is yanked from the game by his mother yelling for him to hurry, and he notes she seems angry. When he gets downstairs, she questions what he'll do with that, and he's stunned to see the log from yesterday, sent by the Village of Fate. Alarmed, he says this prank has gone too far. Hauling the heavy log to the backyard, he recalls his mother telling him to use his ridiculously strong body to move it. Tired, he remembers Ruse and Gam's laboring when he told them to start cutting trees, then tries to dismiss it and calm himself. Unable to take the delivery seriously, he decides to complain to the game company. Checking the stamp for a contact number and finding none, he sees it's from Hokkaido. Even searching the company's address yields nothing, and a satellite map shows only a tiny building. He doubts a small company could make such a great game and wonders if they really created it. Somewhere else, he grumbles about the company's secrecy. Frustrated that he can't travel to Hokkaido to check his suspicions, unsure of what to do with the log he has, the following day, a new package shows up. This time it's a cooler. When he opens it, he sees it's packed with fresh meat, likely from a fierce boar, remembering how Gams and Mouse hunted one down the day before and Kem offered him a share at the altar. To his surprise, his mother walks into the kitchen while he's fumbling to explain what's in front of him. She nervously questions if he's been wasting money on something shady, so he quickly makes up a story about an online project to revive a village. He says his idea got accepted, which is why he's been chatting with villagers who send him local treats as thank yous now and then. His mother buys the story completely, happy to hear it, while Yoshio quietly admits to himself it's sort of true. He passes her the meat, calling it wild boar, and suggests she cook with it as she ponders how to use it. She wonders how to cook it while Yoshio privately frets about whether it's even safe to eat, convincing himself it's not really monster meat. Since then, he's been getting almost daily deliveries from the Village of Fate, stuff like different fruits, monster meats, and even a glowing crystal he activates for light, which he assumes has a bulb inside. He's also received logs occasionally, 3 so far, and wonders if someone might buy them from him. He drags one to the garden, and seeing all these gifts, he starts thinking that building up a village in the game sends valuable stuff to the player as rewards. He guesses the game was created by rich folks and he got picked as a tester by accident. One evening, he's at the table with his parents, eating some of the monster meat he got. His father eats quietly, looking uneasy, while his mother asks if they can get more fruit. She says she feels healthier since eating the village food, and Yoshio promises to ask the villagers for more. She mentions that Saki loved the meat too, and his father chimes in, calling it delicious, praising its natural taste and texture. Yoshio realizes it's been ages since his father spoke so much, figuring he must really like it. Later in the garden, Yoshio tries woodworking with the logs he's gotten, hoping to teach the villagers something, but finds sawing tougher than expected. He wonders if he's messing it up as his father walks over, asking what he's up to. Yoshio explains it'd be a shame to waste the wood and asks to use his father's extra tools. He struggles to keep sawing, the blade jamming, so his father tells him to move and takes over. Yoshio watches, impressed, as his father cuts through the wood easily, pointing out he wasn't using the saw right. Yoshio figures he was avoiding neighbor complaints about the noise and hands the tool back. After that, his father starts giving him tips, and that weekend, they turn the logs into planks to fix the garden fence. Thinking he might teach the villagers to cook meat, he gets his mother to show him some recipes. He learns to cook for himself and starts eating lunch with the villagers daily. One night, he's in the kitchen when Saki gets home from work. Gams enjoys chatting with her and welcoming her home, crediting the Village of Fate for making it possible, though he's unsure if he's aiding the villagers or they're aiding him. His main worry is the village's defenses, so he checks the palisade around the cave entrance. When Kem asks if monsters could leap over it, he reassures her that he and Mouse can handle any that get through, though he admits the real problem is being vastly outnumbered, as they were before, and he accepts this with a grim tone. Yoshio observes that they seem more confident in their defenses now, but the villagers have been acting odd recently. At first glance, their lives appear peaceful and steady, almost free of concerns, yet they seem to be faking calmness while hiding restlessness. Carol notices this too, as their daily talks grow stiff and dull, and they all sigh when glancing at the wooden calendar. As the month nears its end, Yoshio wonders if something big is coming. When all the villagers gather around the table, Carol asks why they look so down, and after nervous looks, Roos and Isla try to comfort her with a fib. She points out how they stiffen when eyeing the calendar, and her father, realizing they can't keep it secret, pats her head and sits next to her. He recalls how, back in the village, they always warned her to stay inside on the last day of the month. She remembers the village locking down then, with adults acting scared and irritable that day. Russ explains to his daughter that it was all to shield the kids and asks if she remembers the world calendar. She describes how each month, one of 7 gods, earth, moon, nature, water, fire, light, and thunder, rules the world, and Yoshio takes mental note as Carol asks her father why only 7 gods hold power, especially with 12 months. Russ clarifies that these 7 gods once ruled just a week each, naming the weekdays, and are the world's main gods, overseeing lesser ones like the god of fate. Yoshio starts to grasp his role better. He learns the 7-day system fell apart after a huge god battle shifted power, causing wild weather swings as each gained ground, taking a full year to settle. The fighting stopped, leaving the 7 gods to rule both their days and thriving periods. The defeated gods, dubbed evil, were cast deep into the earth, where they still grow stronger today. Once a month, they attempt to resurface, boosting monsters with their power. This last day, called Evil God's Temptation, makes monsters fierce and cruel, and Yoshio sees why the villagers are on edge. Noticing their calendar matches his own world's, he calculates 10 days remain until this event. With his current fate points, Yoshio realizes he can't shield the villagers, and as the clock hits 11 o'clock p.m., he spots Roos alone at the table, a rare sight. Russ's wife asks what's bothering him, noting his recent sleeplessness. Clutching his head, he admits he can't shake the last evil god's temptation, saying they barely escaped unharmed. With another monster attack looming, he fears losing his family this time, trembling as he speaks, leaving Yoshio curious about what happened back then. Carol wakes up in her bed on a bright, calm morning, curious about where her parents are. She walks to the mirror and looks at her face, happy to see she looks cute today too. Going downstairs, she finds her parents in the kitchen and says good morning, and they cheerfully respond while her mom tells her to wash her face. The laughing girl goes outside and cleans her face with well water, enjoying how cold and refreshing it feels. Carol suddenly remembers she didn't bring a towel while she fixes her hair and thinks about what a good girl she is. Kem walks up with a bucket and asks if she just got up. Carol asks her where Big Brother Gams is, and Kem oddly says he's guarding the village gates. Yawning, Carol says she doesn't care if he's not there, irritating the priestess, then runs off and slams her door shut as Kem yells after her. Back at the table, Carol pretends not to hear her mom ask about her talk with Kem. Ignoring Kem's outburst, Carol starts eating her breakfast. After finishing, she heads to the door to leave, and when her mom asks where she's off to, she excitedly says she's going to see Gams, rushing out despite her mom's warning not to. As the lively girl hurries through the village, people say hello and comment on her energy, with one vendor giving her fruit and another asking about her parents. She suddenly stops in front of the huge curtain wall. Carol stares at the village's protective wall, noting how massive it always looks. Then she spots Gams and the other hunters gathering by the city gate, heavily armed and looking tired. She runs to the startled Gams and hugs him. He tells her she can't go outside today, and when she asks why, he says it's a special day, pointing out there are no other kids on the streets except her. Noticing this and seeing the worn-out hunters getting ready, she asks Gams if he and the others made the wall. Gams tells her there was a huge war in the area many years ago, and this place was a key fortress. After the war, refugees moved into the empty stronghold's walls and started thriving, creating the town. Carol, not fully getting it, asks if the walls keep everyone safe from all enemies, but their talk is interrupted by Lila, who arrives out of breath, happily grabbing her escaped daughter and carrying her off. Another hunter asks Gams something. A fellow warrior asks Gams if he knows them, and he says they're his next-door neighbors who've been very kind to him and his little sister, both wanderers. The soldier remarks that they don't seem scared at all, and Gams says the walls have never been broken since the town began. Layla says sorry for Carol interrupting and promises to discipline her later, but Gams suggests going easy on her. Carol waves at him, saying she'll see him again soon, and Gams waves back until she's gone. Gams lowers his hand and wonders darkly if there will even be a later, noticing the busy village around him. Carol asks her mom if there's something like a festival today while Lila knits. Looking out the window, Lila says it'd be nice if it were a festival, then perks up and suggests they have a feast tomorrow instead. Carol cheers as her parents share a smile, while the unaware Carol keeps playing and the villagers hurry around outside. Looking out the window, Roos tells his wife he's already loaded the wagon with everything they might need, just in case things take a turn for the worse. He hopes it won't come to that, and that all their efforts to ready the town will prove unneeded. Holding his hands tightly, he silently asks for safety, wishing they can make it through the day without harm and greet the morning sun as usual. That night, the warriors fire a barrage of arrows at a wave of monsters nearing the town. The approaching horde of creatures loses many to the arrows, and the town's brave defenders are stunned to see more than 20 monsters charging together. They'd never dealt with such numbers before, and it's clear various kinds have teamed up for this attack. The gate's commander calls for stronger defenses, hoping the enemy will tire itself out against the sturdy doors without breaking through. Beyond the walls, the monsters claw at the iron-strengthened gates and pound on them relentlessly. All of a sudden, one monster drops dead, pierced by a spear from above, where Gams stands ready on the wall. He holds a handful of throwing weapons in one hand and grips another spear in the other. The warriors take after Gams, fiercely committed to keeping the creatures out, no matter what it takes. Then, a huge beast emerges behind the goblins. A green creature leaps into its grasp and gets hurled toward the wall, knocking a man beside Gams off and landing inside the town as the warriors grasp the danger. More monsters are tossed over the walls, getting past the stretched thin defenders and cutting them down from behind. Gams can't believe how it's come to this as the creatures close in ruthlessly and break through the gates. The villagers scream in terror, running deeper into the town to escape. Inside their house, Russ and his family huddle close, the parents pleading with God to save their daughter Carol at least. Russ yells as something smashes against their boarded door until it caves in, and a blood-soaked Gams steps inside with his sister. Gams' sister Alila checks if the family is okay, and they're relieved to see the warrior. Alila asks if Gams and his sister are fine too, and he assures them the blood on him is from monsters, while his sister Kim's is from people she treated. As Kim patches up Gams' injuries, Roos asks how the battle's going, and Gams begins to say it's not looking good before admitting outright that it's a lost cause. The gates are down, and a flood of monsters is overtaking the town. With most of the fit defenders now dead, Gams left the front line, feeling all hope was gone, wondering if he could at least save his sister and Russ' family. He tells them it's beyond their power now and urges them to run immediately. Looking at his scared family, Russ steps forward and tells Gams they've already packed the wagon with plenty of supplies as a backup plan, pushing them to go. The group heads to the stable while Gams keeps watch for danger. As everyone climbs onto the wagon, Russ lets Gams know they're set to leave, but then he spots 2 goblins coming their way, having been seen. Gams orders Roos to get on the wagon and charges forward, ready to take out the creatures in one swift move. He swings his long sword down, but the goblin dodges and strikes back. Gams slashes again, landing a fatal blow. With the monster dead, Gams tells Roos to move and jumps onto the wagon as the shopkeeper speeds off past the chaos. Gams informs Roos that the town's gate is blocked, but a collapsed section of the northwestern wall might offer an escape route. Russ nods, then stares ahead in terror as he sees the town engulfed in flames. Monsters attack the helpless villagers, killing them while black dogs eat the bodies. Covering his mouth in shock, Roos hears his neighbor's desperate screams for help as the chaos continues. Beside Russ, Gams kills a goblin riding a boar and points to the wall's breach ahead. The shopkeeper steers the wagon through the gap, escaping into the forbidden forest. The town is lost, and as monsters burn everything, Carol's fairy tale book turns to ashes in her former home. Silent in the speeding wagon, Carol asks her mother if they can ever go back. Layla cautiously tells Carol they might return someday, but new adventures await them elsewhere. Kem cheerfully insists they survive thanks to God's protection, and that the god of fate is leading them. Meanwhile, a delivery man arrives at Yoshio's house with a package from the Village of Fate, which the young man signs for.
Hey, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching.